Welcome to the It's Your Fate podcast. Conversations to guide your steps and light your path in deciding your definite major purpose. I'm your host, Lefford Fate. Hello, this is Lefford Fate, and in this series of 17 podcast episodes, which is hosted by my good friend and colleague Mike Saunders, you're going to learn about the principles to a positive mental attitude.
Welcome back, guys. Today we have with us Napoleon Hill certified leader Lefford Fate, and we've got the privilege today of speaking with the executive director of the Napoleon Hill Foundation, Don Green, and we're going to be talking about principle number 6, which is personal initiative. Don, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
Hey, tell us a little bit about personal initiative as it relates to how relevant it is for today, because I feel like today more than ever would be so relevant for personal initiative, because I feel like society as a whole feels like we're seeing people that are relying on just putting out the minimal amount of effort and demanding the maximum amount of accolades in return.
Absolutely. I said, I've used it for in one of the books I wrote. I said, sometimes our ship don't come in. You might need to swim out to where it is. In other words, you can create your own opportunities. And the benefit of the personal initiative is one of the biggest benefits is going the extra mile, because it places emphasis to require a person to take personal initiative. I can almost quote word for word what Hill quoted Carnegie about. He said, 2 types of people who never amount to anything. He said, there are those who never do anything except what they're told to do. And then there are those who cannot even do what they're told. And so I would relate a little story to you. I love stories. I got the Sam Walton Award one year for community work back when I was in banking, and he got a cap with Walmart on it. Of course, I own Walmart stock. That makes me happy. And I got his biography and a few items. But there's a story, Sam, in his book. Sam, he had a habit of visiting all of his stores once a year. Even up when he got up to close to 1,000, he was a businessman. He went in this, didn't tell where, but he went in one of his stores, and the manager, he noticed they were just a bunch of he said, maybe he used the word trash stuff around the checkout, and he told the manager, said, that needs to get cleaned up. And he said, we have a guy comes by several times a day. He'll clean that up. Sam just leaves him, goes back to the back. He finds an employee, and he said, where do you keep the brooms? And they told him. And he gets the broom, comes out to the cash register and a little thing to shovel it, to sweep it up on, and he cleaned it up himself. Do you think that guy might have got a lesson in personal initiative from Sam Walton himself? In other words, if something needs to be done, you go ahead and do it without having to be told. It should have been a tremendous lesson for the guy. You'd hope that he learned something other, and I'm sure Sam meant to teach him that if you see something other that needs to be done, you go ahead and do it. In my lifetime, I probably missed all kinds of things, but I did personal initiative on so many accomplishments that nobody told me to do, and I would just rattle off some of them for your audience. I've read Hill's material and as a youngster, and not only did I read his stuff and I guess dream to a certain extent, but I read what he read. I wanted to know where he got his knowledge from. Of course, I know he done interviews, and so somewhere in my career, I thought we should recognize him. He's born right here where I'm at, and so if you travel Virginia, you'll see these historical markers everywhere. George Washington slept here, or Battle of something other, and so forth and so on. So I asked a politician. He said, that was taken care of as a historical society, part of the state of Virginia government. And so I wrote him a letter and told him I wanted to erect a historical marker to Napoleon Hill. I got a cute little letter back, and it said, we don't recognize individuals. It said it has to be of historical significance, and they have to be dead 50 years and these other requirements. And of course, at the time, Hill had only been dead 20 some odd years, but I didn't stop. I found out I got a friend to get me the list of the about dozen that said on that thing. I got their contacts, and I started calling them. And I basically got the cold shoulder. And then one guy was in Culpeper, Virginia. He was a clerk of the court and was on the board. And I told him what I was doing. He said, "Oh man," he said, "I think that's wonderful." He said, "I read Think and Grow Rich. It's changed my life." He said, "I'll take this to the board," and said, "You can consider it done." And I didn't get it done as quick as I wanted to. It took me over a year. But when I did it, he became the only author in the state of Virginia recognized with a historical marker. And it hadn't been 50 years. And I did some publicity on it, and the people told me we had TV cameras there, we had people from newspaper. They said it was the biggest unveiling of a historical marker since they'd been involved on the thing. And today, I've had people come here from China, India, you name it, Korea, whatever. They want to make sure they have their picture made at the historical marker, which is probably 1 mile from my office on a major 4-lane highway. And I run into it. I got it put up, and then I told the state I wanted to put a stone wall around it, just protecting somebody running over it. And they told me that I couldn't do that. And of course, I had to make some phone calls. And then I asked them if they would plant grass and stuff in it, maintain it. And they called me back and said, "Oh, it was stripped." That means they took the good soil out hunting for coal, and grass wouldn't grow there. So I got my brother-in-law who had a landscaping business. I said, "Glenn, haul me a few loads of topsoil down there around that marker." So he did. And so I called the highway department back and told them I'd put topsoil. I would appreciate it if they'd sow grass and so forth on it. So then this guy, his name was Turner, he was head of the highway department. He called me one day when I was banking. He said, "Don," said, "they're giving me a dinner 2 or 3 weeks or something or other." And he said that they're going to honor me for my retirement. It's a retirement party. He said, "I'd love for you to be there." I'm thinking, well, I ain't got nothing to do with the highway department. Why in the world? But I told him I'd be there. And when I did, they presented me a plaque. And he introduced me. He said, "I want you to meet a guy, Don Green. He's the only guy I know that don't know the meaning of the word no." And got a big laugh about it. But I think that's a good example of personal initiative because nobody requested it. Nobody told me to. I had the idea on myself, and I did what it took to get it done. And I've done many things like that. There's a mural honoring him as you come out of Kentucky, painted on the wall. It's probably a 40 by 100 foot wall. It's got his picture painted on it with 3 other notables, and one of them being, if your guys are students of history, was Gray Francis Purse, the guy who got shot down over Russia during Eisenhower's term. It started the Cold War. He was from this town, and I didn't know him, but I knew his father real well. He run the shoe shop. And how I got on the board. Nobody asked me to be on the board. I wrote them a letter and told them what I was doing, and I got a letter asking me if I would come and have dinner with them and talk about Napoleon Hill, and I did. And before the dinner was over with, Mr. Stone said to me, "Boy, you know this book's better than I do." Said, "You ought to be up on my board." And I said, "What do I have to do, Mr. Stone?" He said, "Just keep up with it. You'll get the reports and come to our meetings." And so then when we sold the bank, it was just the other guy was too old to travel. They offered it to me, and I said, "I'll have to move it to Wise." I said, "Can you do that?" I said, "I got the books. All I got to do is transfer the banking accounts." So it was a home run from the very start.
Wow. Don, thank you for that. That was amazing. One of the questions I have is that a lot of people look at personal initiative and they think it's the other guy. But what other misconceptions out there that surround the principle of personal initiative?
Well, it has so many attributes of using personal initiative. Well, one thing it causes you to, if you got initiative, you'll adopt a definite major purpose. You're not going to sit there on the sofa and wait till somebody comes along and says, "Boy, have I got a deal for you." It's probably not going to happen. And but I think it gives you motivation. If it's something that you really, really, really want to do, I think it will, I said, you can be a success real easy if you really want it. And that is just have what you want to do on your mind when you go to bed, have it on your mind when you wake up, and keep it on your mind of a day. And it requires with personal initiative, if you really apply it, it requires a mastermind alliance, because your major purpose should be of such an importance that you can't go it alone. And if you're going to do it right, that you'll form a mastermind alliance to acquire power to attain its purpose. Because you may lack money, you may lack skills in certain fields that's necessary to you to know, and that's you using other people's brains. And if you have passion, you're really enthused about what you're doing, you'll have discipline. I said the prisons are full of one type of people, and there are people who lack the idea of self-discipline. They can't discipline themselves. They end up a place where they're told what time they're going to go to bed, what time they're going to get up, when the lights go out, when they can take a shower, and what they're going to eat, all for simple reason they could not discipline themselves, and they end up a place that does a discipline for them. But it has all kinds of benefits. Initiative. If you really have initiative, I think you'll make prompter decisions, because you can't just waver back and forth like a tumbleweed and never make a decision. And and I know it in my own self. It creates enthusiasm. I mean, if you really, really, as it's been said a million times, if you love what you're doing, you'll never work a day in your life. I mean, it's unbelievable talking to people that dreads Monday morning. I'm sitting there with a little pad. The do it thing is and listen a few things that I want to attack the first thing, and I can't wait to get started. See how many foreign countries has tried to contact me over the weekend and so forth, and the things that we're going to do. If you're working in a place you have personal initiative, my God, it's contagious as all get out. It'll rub off on the other people, but so is the thing is a bad attitude. I said I've employed lots of people when I was a bank president, and the one thing I would not put up with, I would put up with anything before I would the one thing, which is a bad attitude. I don't want to be around those people because it affects other people. As I guess Mark Twain said, don't walk away from them people, run from them. Because it affects you, and the personal initiative does so much. I think if you have an initiative, you'll find yourself succeeding where other people went about something other half-heartedly will fail. It creates opportunities. It creates a future for you, and it also creates advancement if you're working for someone else. It's just amazing quality to have. To simply love what you're doing, and he'll give us over and over and over. He gave examples, and like the boy that went to work for Mr. Durant, he simply let him in the bank on a Saturday and cashed a check, and then he sharpened the first day of work. He's still leaving at 5 when the gong went off, they call it. He went by Mr. Durant's office and said, "Mr. Durant, got to do anything for you?" And he said, "Son, this is your first day here. Did you hear that gong?" He said, "That means everybody leave." He said, "Yeah, everybody was in a hurry." He said, "I thought you might could use something before I left." He said, "I'm not in no hurry." He said, "Yeah, I'm drawing some plans for a building." Said, "There's an office down at the end of the hall." Said, "Would you go down there and sharpen me a pencil?" And he sharpened 2, took them back. He made that a habit to go by Mr. Durant's office, said, "Can I do anything for you?" He was promoted within about 6 months, given the duty of overlooking a construction of a building, and his only duty was he had a list of he had blueprints, he had a list of the material, and to stay in touch with the foremen and seeing when they need the concrete, when they need this, and to make the phone calls. And, of course, he went around giving speeches. His name was Carroll Downs. He went around making speeches later on. He said sharpening them 2 pencils paid him about somewhere between $10 and $12 million because Durant was the founder of General Motors, and he gave Durant stock because the company was just starting out. But But he gave plenty of examples, and that's one as good as any. It's amazing. I've interviewed a lot of people on their finances and careers and different things. And I had one little girl ask me, said, something that just bugged her, said a person could be making 10 times, 20 times as much as another person, and said, you think that's fair? I said, well, it's easier to deal with what you think's fair. It's easier to deal with reality. I said, the fact is, but you wouldn't be asking that question if you're sitting on the other side of the desk. But that means you've got opportunity. And if you remain in the same position, all you got to do is find out the reason is get up in the morning, go in the bathroom, and look in the mirror, and right there it is. You're the person, because Hill talked about the theory of compensation that Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote about, and which it simply was, if you do more than you're being paid for, someday you'll be paid more for what you're doing. And if you're not recognized by your employer, some other employer will steal you away. But so many people are saying, well, I'll start doing more when they pay me more. See, they got it just backwards.
Yeah.
They got no reason for a raise if they're not producing. Just because you've been a certain length of time on a job, that don't mean you're entitled to a raise just because you stayed there. If you're not getting promoted or advancement, there's no point placing blame on someone else. Because early in my career and following this stuff I've learned that people, when they can develop a thing called blame, they'll never succeed, because there will always be someone to blame. I don't have no money because my wife spends it. The kids don't help out. They don't give me a raise like shit. I'm underpaid. Go on and on and on. Trouble it is, the same excuse don't work all the time. You have to keep inventing new ones. And that's one thing I can enjoy about being successful. It speaks for itself. You don't have to go around telling people, I got this, I got this, I got this, I did this. It just shows. It shows on your face, and it shows the results of what's out in the community, what you've done. You don't have to go around telling nobody that. They'll do it for you.
Don, it's been said that you don't know what you don't know, and I feel like you've covered just a huge amount of benefits of implementing personal initiative and all the outcomes that should be expected. What would you say to the person that does not even realize that quite yet? They don't even realize the outcomes. How would you encourage someone to start applying personal initiative in their own life so that they can realize these outcomes that you've been talking about?
Well, I think they will be surprised. I mean, I did. I was 20 years old, making $1.10 an hour, and they called me hot shot because of my enthusiasm and the way I worked. And see, I didn't think of making $1.10 an hour. I just had read the books, and I know that was just a starting point. They were giving me lessons I could study, and I was reading the books. And I think I had a letter sometime or another many years ago from it was CIT. I was the youngest office manager in their history. I was like 22 years old or something. I had guys working for me in their 40s and 50s because I had the enthusiasm, and I was the first one to work and the last one to leave, and I had it on my mind. I knew I was going to. When I was first married, making $1.10 an hour, my wife watching TV, and I'm sitting there, I'm making goals, in which some of them are silly because you don't think when you think material things is, hey, I've made it. I could put them on a card and give them to her. I said, and she looked at it and said, yeah, you're determined. She said, I really believe you. I said, you might think I'm crazy. And so it went on a little bit, and she said, but don't you tell nobody. And I said, I wasn't going to tell nobody. She said, if you tell somebody what you wrote on that card, said they'll know you're crazy, because I'm making $1.10 an hour. I wrote down on our gold Rolex, and I wrote down a black Mercedes and $1 million in the bank, and which is absolutely asinine. I mean, that's stupid. But I'm 20-some years old, and I'm making $1.10 an hour. But Michelangelo said, dream big. It doesn't cost any more than small dreams. And did I ever dream big? In fact, I'm still wearing that dang Rolex, and it don't keep as good as time as mine. It's a presidential gold Rolex, the best one they make. But I think, well, it don't keep as good as time as my cell phone. But at that age, it was important that I do that. And by the way, I had 2 black Mercedes, and my wife did not even want to be seen in it. She drove a Toyota. But I thought I had to do that. I don't drive a Mercedes no more. I bought 5 new Lexuses, and I found them to be a better automobile, more dependable. Because when I was a banking business, I floor planned for a guy. He had about 10 or 15 dealerships, and he had Mercedes, he had Lexuses, and he had BMWs, and he had all Porsche, he had all the big names. And he told me one day at lunch, he said, "Don, I'm telling you, the Lexus is the best automobile on the road." He said, "I'm talking about price, service, dependability." He said, "There's nothing touches what Toyota puts out." And my wife drove the Toyotas, and I drove the Lexus.
Wow. Hey, Don, I want to finish it up with this because I know you have to go.
Yeah, I've got a conference call with a publisher.
Yeah, you inspired me so much when I went to Wise, Virginia, and you're one of the. I thought I had personal initiative until I start listening to you and talking, and I read your book. Everything I learned from Napoleon Hill. But if you wanted to give someone 2 or 3 things that they can go out and do today, or maybe it's one, a way to exercise personal initiative, what would you say that person should do?
I don't preach to people, Lefford, but I've married 54 years, so I'm forced to fix my own breakfast, which is oatmeal or cereal, cashew. But I've got a little sign on my table. I see it every morning before I ever take a bite, and it simply says, "God, show me somebody that I can help today, in Jesus' name." And that's His pleasure. And I know that there'll be, before the day is out, that there's someone that I can help. And it never fails. I mean, it's whether it's mentoring, whether one of the young students, or recommend one of them for a scholarship, or writing a letter of recommendation for them, or whatever. I know that there's someone that will come in my path that I can help before the day is out. Yesterday I got a call from a lady from Spain wanting to take the course. And she said she had been in touch with our office, and they said it was too late now. She'd have to wait, and she just had a newborn baby. I said, "Ma'am," I said, I've got a phone call in just 5 minutes. I said, it's actually an interview, and it'll last 30 minutes. I said, but I'll tell you, if you want to pay for that course, you will not be disappointed. I said, and when you complete all the lessons online, you pick up the phone and call me, or you email me. You can fly over here from Spain. I will spend time with you. I'll take you out to lunch. I will talk to you, and I'll see if you understand the principles. And if you've completed all your lessons, I'm going to get a certificate. I'm going to send it. I'm going to sign it to you and present it to you, and you can fly back to Spain. So help me, while I was doing that 30-minute interview, when I got off, Zane printed the thing out. She went on PayPal and paid $1,098. So things like that. It's not always money, but it made my day. And there's always something another. There's always something another out there that you can help without telling anyone else about it. People about it. Whether it's just paying tuition for someone that's struggling for a summer class, buying their books or whatever. I got so many tales. I could fill 40 books of things that's happened in my life. It's just being so satisfied. And I'll tell you this when I got that time to tell it. But my wife of 54 years passed away, and we used to go to the movies, and she liked the movies. And there's a cute little blonde worked there, and she was in college. And my wife got to liking her, and she told my wife one day, "I'm getting married." She said, "Now, Nikki, don't you do that." Said, "You leave them old boys alone, and you get your degree." Well, she didn't listen. She married a boy, and they went to the Army or something. And all I said to her was, "Hey, you get out and you want to go to school, give me a call." Well, guess what happened? She's married probably 2 years. In the meantime, my wife passed away, and she called me one day. She said, "I want to go back to school, but I got no money." I said, "Put your application out and see what I can do for you." I got her a free ride. She got everything except she needed money for her books, and she'd come by and see me crying, and I wrote her a check for her things that she finished, and she just, I got them people on the phone there 2 or 3 minutes early. But when I called my daughter and told her, I said, Daddy, you got to help that girl. She said, Mom, that's the last shopping trip we made before Mom passed away. She went and bought her something for a wedding and said you was out of the country. And said, you help that little girl. And did I help the little girl? And she stays up with me. And she's now in school working on her master's degree. And she had problems in her family growing up. She wants to be an abuse counselor. She's getting a master's in psychology. I'll talk to you guys later, but I do got to really go.
Well, Don, thank you so much for your insights on personal initiative. We really appreciate your time.
Well, I appreciate you guys.
You've been listening to the It's Your Fate podcast. To connect with me and pick up a copy of one of my books, please visit www.leffordfate.com. That's leffordfate.com. You've met your fate. Now let's walk into your destiny.